Greetings and welcome to the latest episode of Legal Bites, the official podcast of Cummings and Cummings Law, where we focus on helping businesses and their owners redomesticate out of volatile legal and tax environments like Delaware to more predictable pro-entrepreneurship, pro-growth states like Florida and Texas. Today, we are discussing how to move your existing LLC or corporation out of Delaware to a new state to avail yourself of tax benefits, among other prospective advantages. But first, a brief introduction. My name is Chad Cummings, and I am an attorney and certified public accountant serving clients in matters of business, tax, and commercial law throughout the states of Florida and Texas. I am Chief Executive Officer of the multi-state, multi-attorney law firm Cummings and Cummings Law. And in addition to my day job, I also teach business and tax law at the university level. I hold 4 degrees, including 2 law degrees, together with a bachelor's degree in accounting and a master's degree in taxation, in addition to 11 professional licenses and certifications covering accounting, tax, audit, and of course, the law. My firm website is www.cummings.law. Now, for decades, the standard advice was to incorporate in Delaware, and that advice is now outdated. Delaware's reputation historically was built on the so-called Court of Chancery, a body of corporate law spanning decades, even centuries in certain cases, and a franchise tax revenue model that made the state financially dependent on keeping companies domiciled there. That dependency is now Delaware's problem, not its advantage. Companies are leaving. The court has lost credibility with the business community, and the tax structure that sits underneath that reputation has always been worse than most attorneys and even many CPAs seem to realize. Now, Delaware ranks as number 24 on the Tax Foundation's 2026 State Tax Competitiveness Index. Not great, not terrible, but firmly in the mediocre ranking category. It fell 4 places in a single year because it stood still while other states reformed. The Tax Foundation's assessment is blunt. Delaware is more attractive as a place in which to incorporate than a state in which to conduct business, although even the former is now being called into question. Delaware previously sold corporate domicile as a prestige product, and that product is now inferior both in practical and legal terms to what Texas, Florida, and some other states are offering, and companies and their owners are voting with their feet and their wallets. The tax structure tells part of the story. Delaware imposes a graduated individual income tax with a top rate of 6.6%, which activates at just $60,000 of Delaware-sourced income. That is one of the lowest thresholds in the country for reaching a top bracket. Wilmington adds its own local income tax of 1.25%, the only jurisdiction in Delaware to do so. Delaware imposes an 8.7% corporate income tax, and on top of that, Delaware is one of only 2 states in the union that imposes both a corporate income tax and simultaneously a state-level gross receipts tax. That is a double whammy. A gross receipts tax is levied on gross sales, that is to say your top line, not your bottom line, without allowing deductions for business expenses, costs of goods sold, or compensation. It taxes revenue, not profit. That means that a business generating $10 million a year in gross revenue, but losing $1 million a year, still pays the gross receipts tax. That structure favors large businesses and punishes small and medium-sized companies. Delaware also imposes a capital stock tax on corporate net worth. It requires non-resident individual income tax filing and withholding for anyone who works in the state for even a single day. Don't take my word for it, ask your CPA. And it imposes a so-called convenience rule that's actually quite inconvenient in that it can tax remote workers whose employer is based in Delaware, even if the worker never sets foot in the state. Nearly half of Delaware's total tax revenue, that is to say 48%, comes from so-called other taxes, a category dominated by entity fees and franchise taxes. Delaware's state budget depends on companies paying annual franchise taxes to remain domiciled there. That revenue model only makes sense when companies keep paying. They are not. They are leaving. Tesla, for example, redomesticated to Texas. TripAdvisor and Dropbox also redomesticated out of Delaware. Bill Ackman's Pershing Square reincorporated in Nevada and structured a $64 billion acquisition through a Nevada domiciled entity. ExxonMobil redomiciled to Texas from New Jersey, bypassing Delaware entirely. The Court of Chancery's decision in Tornetta versus Musk blocking a $56 billion, not million, billion dollar compensation plan triggered an open revolt from the business community and particularly the Silicon Valley tech bros. Elon posted publicly that no one should incorporate in Delaware. The Delaware Supreme Court later overturned that particular case, but the bell was already rung. Delaware then passed Senate Bill 21, a sweeping overhaul of its corporate law, which generated its own scandal when reporting revealed that the governor's office had drafted the bill with assistance from lawyers from Tesla and Meta. Some people might call that a conflict of interest. The perception that Delaware's laws are now written to order for individual companies does not inspire confidence among small and medium-sized business owners. Meanwhile, Texas launched its business courts in September 2024 with judges required to have at least a decade of relevant judicial experience. Texas codified its business judgment rule through Senate Bill 29 and amended the Texas Business Organizations Code to allow jury trial waivers and exclusive forum provisions. Florida, similarly, is quite favorable. Like Texas, Florida imposes no state-level personal income tax. And Florida does have a modest corporate income tax, but it does not apply to most small and medium-sized businesses. Redomestication is the lesser-known legal process of transferring a company's existing state of domicile to a new state without dissolving it, without creating a new entity, and without triggering a federal income tax when performed with the requisite formalities under the Federal Internal Revenue Code, applicable Treasury regulations, and the statutory frameworks of both the destination and departing states. The company retains its existing federal employer identification number, contracts, credit history, and bank accounts. Foreign entity registration, in distinction to redomestication, those are not the same thing. Foreign entity registration does not change the company's domicile. Meanwhile, a traditional merger, which is also not the same thing as redomestication, creates a new entity in the new state and is significantly more expensive and complex. Finally, dissolution. Dissolution should not enter the conversation at all. Dissolution is the legal equivalent of burning down your house to move to a new neighborhood. If you have a so-called professional recommending dissolution as a method of transferring a company that is going to continue operating out of Delaware to a new state, please get a second opinion and probably even a third opinion from more knowledgeable legal counsel. Now, redomestication, when paired with a change of personal residency and a reduction or cessation of business operations in Delaware, can reduce or even eliminate state tax exposure for the entity and its owners. Delaware built an empire on corporate domicile. Now everyone is leaving. Delaware is not the default answer anymore. It is the answer no one has bothered to question until recently. I have personally assisted a number of companies redomesticate out of Delaware with a 100% success rate to date. If someone is telling you it's impossible to redomesticate out of Delaware, they simply don't know what they're talking about. If you have questions regarding potentially redomesticating your existing LLC or corporation, please use the link in the description for more information on this legal process and to schedule time for you and I to speak one-on-one about your specific scenario. Again, my name is Chad Cummings, and I hope that you found this information helpful. As always, the information in this presentation is general in nature and is not legal advice, because legal advice, by definition, must be specific to a particular set of facts and circumstances. Should you have any questions regarding this information or the content of any of my many earlier presentations on redomestication generally or Delaware specifically, please visit my firm website at www.cummings.law, not .com, but .law to schedule time for a consultation. I look forward to the opportunity to speak with and perhaps even work with you very soon.